Welcome back. This is Life After Life Beyond the Veil podcast. My name is Morgan, and this is episode 5. We're happier when we know more. Man's duality and the living soul, the unquenchable thirst to know more about ourselves and our relation to the universe. So, welcome back. This episode will find us taking our first real foray into the book Mansions of the Soul by H. Spencer Lewis. If you haven't taken a listen already, I do recommend taking a quick jump back to my prior episode 4, You'd Think a Supreme Grand Lodge Would Be Accommodating, where you'll find not only an introduction to the book that I'm going to be talking about, but also what I hope you'll take from its contents and what I hope to impart as we explore its pages together. Freedom. Freedom from fear. This, in turn, will help you live the life your mind craves, the connection your heart yearns to feel, and the enlightenment your soul has been waiting for. So let's dive in, shall we? We're going to start out with a quote from Mansions of the Soul, chapter 3. We find theology in general throughout the ages admitting one fact or claiming one point with consistency. It is to the effect that the real part of man is the infinite, divine, or intangible consciousness and essence which constitutes the inner self. For this inner self, many names have been invented and universally adopted at various times. The most general of these names is that of soul, and we find it associated with another word which means the breath. And for many ages, the inner self of man was associated with the idea of breathing an invisible essence, which constituted the spiritual nature of man. A second general principle, most universally and consistently adopted, was the idea that this soul of a man is a distinct entity or a spiritual something that is immortal and at times separates from the physical body. Thus, we have two important points coming down to us from antiquity as fundamental principles involved in the explanation of man's spiritual existence. These points we find beautifully incorporated in an attempt to explain the creation of man in the translated book of Genesis in the modern Christian Bible. Therein, we read that God made man out of the dust of the earth, which represented the physical, chemical, mechanical, and material part of his being. And into this, God breathed as a second part of the man the breath or essence or consciousness of life, and the physical body became a living or animated visible soul. Two important secondary principles are intimated by this symbolical or allegorical process of man's creation. First, that the physical body, made of the material elements of the earth, was completed and perfected as a purely material form before any consideration was given to the process of animating it with consciousness of life. Second, that with the physical body completed and yet lifeless, it was necessary for something more to be done to make it a living being, and that to do this there was added a second and a distinctly different and a separate element called the breath of life. After this entered the physical body, the physical part became insignificant, for man was then not merely an animated body or a physical body that was filled with life, but a soul that could live on earth and manifest itself and was therefore a living soul. Chapter 3, Mansions of the Soul. Now, if you're not familiar with Genesis, or the Bible for that matter, the verse that he is referring to goes, "Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into him his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, the Bible. The beauty and power of a verse does not lie in its length nor its book. This verse's weight lies in its imagery. It lies in the depiction as you yourself not only slow down in relation to the world around you, but really allow the words to be measured as you read them, giving them space and time to absorb so that the full meaning can sink in and find purchase, letting the picture form in your mind as you go. Whether you generally try to take things in with a metaphorical, symbolic, or literal lens. For now, I'm asking you to put it away. Just let the words that I'm about to say wash over you. A lifeless form made of dirt, made of earth. Just as it came to be, it can return, inanimate and still. No vibration, no energy, no subtle movements that mark a man, no rising, no falling, a casement of clay and soil, empty, fertile but nothing sown, for it is waiting, just waiting. The author of life, our Creator, has many names given by his children: God, Creator, Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, the One, the All, Elohim, Alpha and Omega, Emmanuel, Jesus, Messiah, Adonai, just to name a few. No matter the name, they are one and the same. He sees the shape of man is as cold as the ground it lies upon. No warmth runs through it, no beating heart. He leans in close to his creation, close enough to embrace. He fills his own lungs, his chest expanding with the very strength and depth of it, feeling them brim with his very being, with all that he is and all that he ever will be till eternity, drawing it in till it threatens to consume him. Yet he reaches out to lay a gentle hand upon its face, as a father to his sleeping child. So fragile, so precious, so much said within that one touch. With the power of a great wave that comes to shore but does not disturb the sand it washes upon, he pours out his love and his spirit in the single breath that he gathered, releasing it so that it may find its new home, its new purpose, to bring forth life where there was none before. The spirit sings as it winds its way through, sweeping and churning. It electrifies and charges that which was dark, that which was still, that which was quiet. The heart starts to beat, the blood to pump, the cells start to grow and swim, the neurons fire and snap. The spirit settles deep, the body beautiful and right, perfect in its creation for this experience, for this life. A gasp, air learned and breath drawn, the eyes open, the spirit now a soul. So after reading about the creation of man and technically the soul, the question is, how does that relate to the topic at hand? The topic being easing, if not erasing, your fears by relaying the fundamental truth of your immortal and living soul, which continues to exist beyond our body's ultimate return to the earth, and eventually the topic of what lies beyond that, the life after life. H. Spencer Lewis once again says it so well. The very inner nature of a man seems to be inspired with an unquenchable thirst for knowledge about himself and his relations to the universe, and nothing short of the truth in these matters will suffice. The whole culture and advancement of man's civilization, however, has proved that man has become more happy, more contented, and more masterful through understanding every natural and divine law involved in his existence. Chapter 3, Mansions of the Soul. In other words, the more truths we know, the better and happier we are. Before understanding our souls, our relationship with our souls, this life, this experience, its purpose, where we go from here, and the myriad of other amazing curiosities and questions, we have an inherent drive to start at the beginning, to determine our own origin story within this plane. We crave the hows and the whys in order to feel secure and at peace with our lot. Even if you're not a religious person, or generally a spiritual one, Mr. Lewis notes that throughout the ages, certain truths and fundamentals have been able to survive the passage of time. Humans have always been aware of the duality of man's being, a consciousness that makes us us. The ability to think, reason, differ, experience, and maintain a sense of self and inner will. Something entirely separate from the physical body. A body consisting of elements held together by energy. That's the dual. This distinction has not only been recounted across vast spans of time, but varying religions, countries, ethnicities, and groups. That is a considerable amount of time and a host of people thinking there's something more to us than just flesh and bone. Consider also that the author or authors of Genesis chapter 2 verse 7 describe this duality of man. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Whether you view the work as historical or merely allegorical, layered beneath the creation of man at the hands of God, they subtly draw you into the belief that the body and soul are two separate creations before they are brought together, and that the soul fundamentally remains autonomous. This autonomy of spirit, a soul that at times separates from the physical body, is what we're ultimately striving to understand. Intuition, meditation, awakening, enlightenment, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences. Our soul is immortal. We are infinite. Be sure to look out for my next episode with more on the mansion and the hows and the whys. Thank you so much for listening. Happy years and happy tears to you all. Cheers.